Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kamelian Productions YouTube channel, and today we're going to be having another look at some Photoshop. So in the last video we created a new logo for the channel, which you can see. Be sure to check it out if you missed it, but let's get started. Today we're going to be creating an image of two race cars racing in the desert. So naturally I started by adding a desert background to the photo. I added a sky in the background on top in order to fill in the empty space, and I used a curves adjustment to color correct it in order to match the rest of the image. I found an image of a race car online, and using the pen tool I created a layer mask to add it into the photo. In order to add a shadow, I transformed it and reflected it vertically. Then I used a hue saturation adjustment layer, decreasing the lightness in order to color it black. Finally, I reduced the opacity and added some motion blur to soften the edges. And here you can see we have a nice shadow. I then added a curves adjustment to color correct the car, mainly decreasing the blue tones. I added some dust by using a solid color in the same color as the sand and a smoke brush in order to create a mask on the layer. To create shadows, I used a similar process with a hue saturation slider to decrease the lightness, and then a smoke brush. I added dust in front of the shadows to mute them a little bit by adding a solid color with an opacity of 10% and using a smoke brush to create a mask over the shadows. Then I added a second car to the background. This was the car that was losing in the race, clearly, and I masked it out using the pen tool again. I color corrected it using the same curves that I did for the first car. Since they were in similar environments to start off with, I didn't have to change it very much. I added some tire tracks by using a hue saturation slider in order to decrease the lightness, and then a round brush again to create a mask. Then, using a solid color and a smoke brush, you're probably sensing a pattern here, I created a trail of dust behind the second car. Using the same method with the hue saturation slider and a smoke brush, I added some more shadows. I then added some dust to go between the two cars, as this would add some depth to the image, making it look more 3D. I added a direct shadow to the second car, but this time, instead of just reflecting the original image and coloring it black, I used a hue saturation slider, decreasing the lightness of the sand, and using a round brush I created a layer mask in the shape of the shadow. I then did exactly the same thing to the first shadow in order to polish it off, since before it looked a little bit odd. For a general color grade, I used a camera raw filter, which is basically like Adobe Lightroom inside of Photoshop. After some basic color correction, I added some heavy noise reduction, as this seemed to help blend the smoke trails nicely, and then added some grain and vignetting, as this would give the image a more grounded feel. Finally, just for fun, I added some text at the top that said Formula 1 Grand Prix, because why not? Thank you for watching this Kamelian Productions video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and hit that notification bell so that you can be updated when future videos are released.